Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome to tonight's live stream. I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. If you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, tap the notification bell so you will be notified when there's live discussions as well as videos going up on the channel. Also, please hit the thumbs up. We'll give everyone a minute or two to get in the room and so we can get the discussion going. All right, guys, when you come in the room, please hit the thumbs up button. That really, really helps the live stream to be seen by more people. It'll also help it to be in suggested videos. Also, please subscribe and share the video. I want to talk really briefly about what actually inspired tonight's live stream because this channel is relatively new and I wasn't really planning on going live until I had a few videos up. But there was one particular thing that stood out to me, which was a meme that I seen floating around on social media. And that meme was in reference to a lot of what we're seeing going on right now with the police shootings and, you know, the protests and everything like that. And the meme said, white people do something. And the reason why it particularly stood out to me is because the people that were primarily sharing this meme were black people. And that really confused me because I was thinking to myself, I don't really understand why black people are reaching out to white people and asking white people to do something about this situation that primarily affects us. My personal feelings on it is that it's really not in the best interest of white people to solve this issue. It's our responsibility to solve it. And you know, I got a little bit of heat for it, but the thing that also stood out to me the most was the fact that when I posted under that meme that it's not in white people's best interest to do anything about the current racial system that is in place in this country, a white woman actually responded to me and she agreed with me, and I wanted to share her comment with you guys. I posted, it's not in white people's best interest to do something, and that's the best kept secret. This young lady responded to me and she said, you are right. And more white people feel that way than I ever imagined. I mean, it cannot just be ignorance. None of this is new to me, and I'm 47. So just where in the world were those white people who just seem to be noticing? I don't get it. Some do care, but it seems to me way too few. I've never understood. I never understood how more don't. Some people I think are just plain evil, and sure seems more white people in that demographic than should be. That stood out to me because, like I had been trying to convey to black people, it may not even be the fact that white people are racist because that, in many instances, that's not what this is about. It's about black people needing to be in a strong position, in a position of power where they can solve their own issues. Now, getting back to the part where I'm saying I don't feel that it's in white people's best interest to do this is because when you think about racism and what racism is, and I'm going to get into that in a minute, racism was set up as a system that white people benefit from. And for example, when most people think about racism, they think about the textbook description, which is someone hating you, you know, based on your race, the color of your skin, so on and so forth, which that is a factor to racism. That's one of the, the main factors. But there is another factor that has an impact on the world as we know it today. And a lot of people don't really pay attention to that factor of racism, which is that racism is about dominance, power, and control. Control of resources, control of land, control of infrastructure, control of societies. And white people have put themselves in a position of power on this planet to be able to dominate other groups of people, and primarily black people because of our circumstances. Black people are, the least wealthy and the least powerful group on the planet because of, historical things that have taken place. Now, my concern and the thing that, I wanted to talk to black people about the most is that why are we continuously asking for the system that was put in place to have us in a weakened position to empower us? To me, that doesn't really make any sense. And if anyone in the comment section would like to weigh in on this and tell me how they feel about that, if this is something that doesn't make sense to you as well as it doesn't make sense to me, or however you may feel about it. The reason that I feel it really doesn't make any sense because, as I said, when you think about the system of racism and the underlying reason for it, it really doesn't make any sense for a group of people that set up a society that they, want it to be in their best interest for their culture and for their people and for them to be able to dominate and rule this society. It doesn't really make any sense that they would hand power to another group of people and destabilize themselves and, take the power away from themselves. Another thing that I wanted to briefly touch on is, how black people got into this situation. You know, um, I don't really feel like segregation was a good thing just because of, the racial terrorism that came along with segregation. But I do feel like when we were basically in our own societies and we had control of our resources, we had control of our businesses, we had control of our infrastructure, we were well on our way to building ourselves up and becoming a powerful group of people that, if that would have continued for us to live among ourselves and build our communities, I strongly do feel like, things would be quite different today. Um, you know, I have, very strong views on integration, and I'm going to tell you why. Integration, at the time, I strongly feel that the people that pushed for integration, they felt that, it would change society for the better. And I can't really fault them for that because they did what they felt was best at the time. But we have to think about what was lost during integration because prior to integration, we pretty much owned and controlled our own communities. Doing my research, what I've seen and come to know is that after integration, black businesses basically, a lot of them ceased to exist. And that was a major blow to the economy in our community because when everybody began to intermingle with each other, for some reason or another, our businesses began to get phased out. Our lands began to have other people come into our communities and set up businesses. And we, for some reason, felt like us doing business with everyone else somehow made us equal, not really realizing that we were destabilizing ourselves because we were handing over our economic power to other people. And I'm not saying that to say that we can't, you know, convene with other people, we can't communicate or interact with other people. But what I am saying is something that's very, very simple. When you think about the way power and dominance works, there's no way that a powerful group of people are even going to have an incentive to respect or even feel take the initiative to put the lesser or the lesser powerful group on equal footing with. I think that's one thing that Black people really, really, really need to understand. Because the more we push and we fight and we continue to say we need more of this and more of that in a system that we don't control, we're actually doing more harm to ourselves than good, because we're basically begging for someone to give us power. And what you have to understand about power is that power is not given, it's taken. It is, something honestly are innately that you innately are entitled to, but you have to be able to put yourself in a position where you can exercise that power. And unfortunately, that's probably going to have to be done with us coming together as a group and empowering ourselves as a group. The problem with us is that a lot of us have an individualistic mindset where we feel like, I'm going to take care of me and my family, but that's not the way this system works. A lot of people don't understand how white society works. White society is cohesive with one another, they're in collusion with one another. They don't have to say anything because they have a code of conduct for how they are going to live their lives and what they are going to do as a group without having to say it. And it's something that is understood, and that's the reason why we primarily see their community doing a lot better than ours, because they understand the power of group economics, of coming together as a group for a common goal. Now, I'm not saying that any of these things that are happening to us are right. Please don't think that I'm saying that. But what I am saying is that if we want to be in a position where we're not vulnerable, we're not weak, and we're not in a situation where we're basically, in many ways, defenseless to do anything when people want to come and attack us, then we really, really need to analyze our situation and say, is this individualistic mindset that we have in our communities, is that really helping us? What I would say to that is no. I mean, just take a look around. Just see how other groups of people operate in their communities. You have the Chinese community, very cohesive, basically doing things together, building up their community, having pride in their culture, not wanting to have acceptance from others, but taking their resources and putting it into their community, building up their people. I think one of the major problems with this is that Black people, for some reason, have gone into the mindset that being Black first and putting your community first is racist. And that could be furthest from the truth. That is how you preserve your culture. That is how you preserve your race. That is how you become strong. That is how you build. We spend a lot of time worrying about what people are going to think about us as opposed to coming together and building something for ourselves so that we don't have to constantly be the low-hanging fruit that everyone feels they can exploit. Just take a minute to think about how society is run. Everyone knows that if you come to the Black community, it's a cash cow. You're going to make money, you're going to get support, and no one is going to question you. They're going to question what you're contributing to the community, what you're doing to uplift the community. I'll give you guys a prime example of what I'm talking about. At one point in time, I lived in a community that was predominantly white. There was a guy that came to that community. It was a black Haitian man. He opened a dollar store right in a very, very busy plaza. And within 3 months, that man had to close his store because the people did not want him there. They wanted the businesses to remain as is so that their people could profit from their community. Now, some people might argue that that is racist. You can say it's racist or you can feel like it's racist, but what that is group economics, cohesiveness, and pride in your race. Black people have to get into that same mindset that we're proud of who we are and we're proud of our race and we're going to do something to build each other up. I hate to have to continue to see this brutality and to see people coming in our community attacking us because they know we're vulnerable and we're weak. That's the bottom line of why this stuff continues to happen to us. There's really no way to get around that. A strong community that has a mechanism to protect itself and sends a strong message that we're together, we're not going to tolerate this, and we are going to have each other's backs, and we're going to stand firm for our people. That is a community that you can't attack, that you can't come in and exploit. So I just wanted to, touch on that and let people know that we have to stop depending on other people to do the things that we should be doing for ourselves. A lot of us are afraid to, a lot of us are afraid to build. A lot of us are afraid that what we what we have or what we can do won't be comparable to other people. I've literally heard some people say that if we build something or if we do this or this or that, no one's going to support it. We're not going to support each other. It's not going to last. It's not going to work. And what I have to say to that is that anything that you want to do, if you go into it with the mindset that it's not going to work, you've already failed before you even try. So there's no need for you to even try. The first step to doing anything is having the mindset that you can do it. I was having this discussion back and forth on Facebook with people where they were saying that, a society fully owned and run and controlled by black people, I'm talking about everything from the government to the grocery store to whatever, just something that belongs to you, something that you have the right to express yourselves freely and basically live your life and be the determining factor of your own destiny, not constantly looking over your shoulder, wondering if you're being discriminated against, just hoping and praying that you're not the next person to be killed. That's not a way to live. And to be honest, we're not really living. We're merely just existing in a society where we don't know if we're going to be the next ones to be attacked. So, I'm not trying to condemn anybody or make anyone feel down on themselves, but I really, really, really would like for us to analyze our situation, think about what it is that we want for ourselves, and think about the possibility and the realization of us being able to build something for ourselves so that we can be the strong race that we always have been, and we can decide and be the determining factor of our destiny in this world and not be tied in with individuals that don't have the responsibility or the incentive or the interest in building us up. So now if there's anybody, who would like to chime in, who would like to, add something to the conversation, I'm going to take a quick look at the comments. Miss Arquay says, hey, Miss Arquay. Miss Arquay was with me on my old YouTube channel. A lot of people don't know I had another channel last year, and Miss Arquay was one of the subscribers. So, hey, Miss Arquay. Um, Urban Country Living says, please share. She will read your comments. Vontae Vid says, spiritually, we are the strongest. You know something, Vontae Vids, you're absolutely right, because I can't think of another group of people that would have been able to survive what we have survived as a people. We are a resilient people, and that's what I want people to understand. Like, realize your greatness. Understand who you are as a people. Like, there's nothing in this world that we are not capable of. I know history teaches us that we didn't really contribute much to civilization, but that can't be furthest from the truth. And that's why it's incumbent upon us to know our history, to know who we are, and to focus on us. We have to build ourselves up before we can talk about being, in unison with anyone else. We have to first come together. The next, Lakeisha says Black Wall Street was burned down. That is, I think, Lakeisha, I think that's one of the biggest fears that people have, because I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of history real quick. Post slavery, during Reconstruction, Black people were doing very, very well. We own millions and millions, we own tens and millions of acres of land. We were starting to build businesses. Our communities were doing very, very well. And unfortunately, because of the racial climate of that time, people did come in and attack our communities. And that goes back to the competition thing. We were becoming strong. We were becoming powerful. We were building ourselves up. And, people were realizing, like, hey, if this continues, then we may very well lose our power. So I know that that's a really, really big concern of a lot of us today. Like, if we build this up, is it going to be safe? Is it going to get burned down? Are people going to attack us? But if we're living and operating in fear, then we're not living. The bottom line about it is that you just have to be fearless, and you have to do what it is that you know is right. And you can't continue to be afraid to take your birthright, which is freedom. Let's see. Lakeisha says, yep, and preserve our race. People, Urban Country Living says, people say it's racist to want your own society. Well, the people that say that, that goes back to what I was saying about people wanting us to be in a position of weakness, because one of the other best kept secrets is that a lot of other groups of people know our history better than we know our history. So they understand the greatness of our people and what we have contributed to society. Now, they may not put it in the history books, and they may not want to talk about it openly, but you just have to think about it. When you think about Africa and how Africa feeds the entire world, you have to think about why people would have an incentive to make you feel like you don't want to connect with your people, because they already understand that if we become united and we connect with one another, we're a force that cannot be taken down. And, that's a fear of some people. And what I have to say to that is that we can't let that deter us. We have to keep moving forward, because the cycle will repeat itself if we don't start to really take it seriously about building ourselves up. We have to come to terms with the fact that we are in a very weakened position as it is right now in this country. And if we don't do something, then the cycle is going to continue. We can't expect for anyone to just walk up to us and say, here, we're going to give you this so you can, build yourself up and go on your way. Now, granted, we are owed that because our ancestors did build this infrastructure. However, they did it under force, and they weren't building it for us, they were building it for other people. So, that's something that we really need to take into account, and we need to just not be afraid. Because if we're afraid, we're not even going to begin to come together to have the discussions and start making the moves that we need to make to build ourselves up. Okay, Lakeisha says, I wasn't saying it out of fear. I was saying we can support ourselves. Well, I wholeheartedly agree with that, Lakeisha. But fear is a real thing in our society, because I've seen people say this on social media platforms where I've been having these discussions with people. I've seen people say, it's a very real reality that people could come in and try to attack us and take what we have. So, probably not you in particular, but that is a concern for why a lot of us are afraid to build anything out of fear that it'll be taken from us. Miss Arquay says, every time I think about us being prosperous, I do feel like history will repeat itself in a country that's not built for us. Well, that is a possibility. But again, if we remain stagnant and we don't take the steps in that direction to begin to build ourselves up, we might as well just lay down and die. Because we'll continue to see the same things that we're seeing in the media continue to happen to us. We're literally existing in a society where at any given time, someone could take our lives and there'll be very little consequences for that. We have to build ourselves up. That's just the bottom line about it. We can't be afraid of what someone might do to us. We just have to build ourselves up, create our communities, and then put a protection mechanism in place for where we can see to it that our stuff, our communities are not burned down and are not taken away from us. Black-Hearted Oracle says, it will be the same. We are naturally a powerful family. We have to build while learning to protect what is naturally ours. Everyone has their own. Why can't we? I agree with that 100%. And that goes back to what I was saying about when you think about the system of racism and how people have such an emotional attachment to racism, not understanding that racism is about, it's really about a race for resources, infrastructure, and power. So we are just as entitled to having our own infrastructure and power. We're not going to use the tactics that other people have used to get it, but we are just as entitled to it as anyone else. And we have to begin to feel that we are entitled to it. We have to begin to move like we know that we have the right to be in control of our own destiny. Because as it stands right now, under this current system in society, we have very little control over our destiny. There's only so far that we can go in this society. Ms. Arquay says, the powers that be will do everything they can to ensure we stay at the bottom. How we monetize when we have very little black-owned banks. That goes back to what I was saying about cohesiveness and sticking together and doing business with one another and putting our money into our communities. We have to do this religiously. This has to become a way of life for us, because that's the only way that we will be able to have those banks and have everything else that we need. We have to sit down and we have to strategize about how we're going to do this, because you have to think about it like this. If we're not willing to do business with anyone else but ourselves, then everything that we want will fall into place. Uh, Urban Country Living says Black Wall Street was built on conquered land. Wouldn't be wouldn't be first time though. Well, that Urban Country Living, you're absolutely right. Black Wall Street was built on conquered land. We're living in conquered land, so in order for us to be able to do any of the things that we're talking about right now, we are going to have a territory that exclusively belongs to us. And we're going to have to be prepared to defend that land with everything that we have. That's what I mean when I say we have to drop our fear, because if we're afraid to protect our land, then we very well may lose it. We can't allow ourselves to be conquered again. So that's, all of these things we're brainstorming and we're seeing what it is that we can do, but we have to really begin to, see how this is going to become a way of life for us, because this is something that has to be taken very, very extremely seriously. Lakeisha says, but hopefully the We Buy Black movement will help resume our independence and strength that we can provide for our community. We have the real movement called Toast the Real Estate Fund we are restarting. Yes, Lakeisha, that goes back into what I was saying about group economics and not being afraid to unapologetically do business with Black people. Um, there was a time where we did this and it was normal to us. But as we began to come into an integrated society, for some reason, it seems as if we begin to water down, water down our culture and be afraid to express our Blackness and be afraid to express the pride that we have in ourselves. And, that had really, really bad repercussions, because as we were fighting to be pushed more into a multicultural society, we didn't realize that we were diminishing our identity so that we could fit in. And we were handing over our power to other people so that we could be in their society. And, that hurt us a lot more than it helped us, because when you look at where we are today, we have a lot less than we had prior to us, becoming part of those systems. The Black Hearted Oracle says they fear retribution, but we just want the ability to live and fulfill our birthright. That is that is one of the things that a lot of people talk about. They talk about retaliation and retribution and us getting payback for what happened to our ancestors. And what happened to our ancestors was a very, very terrible thing. And, I'm not suggesting any retribution against anyone. But what I do want is for us to be in a situation where we can decide for ourselves what it is that we're going to do, and for people to leave us alone and let us on our way so that we can build ourselves up. Now, if they don't want to do that voluntarily, then we may very well have to defend ourselves and do what we have to do to be able to move away and do what it is that we have to do for each other. Lakeisha C says, We Buy Black started with a website. Now we have progressed into a convention. Now they keep moving forward, and hopefully it will progress into a town again. Well, yes, Lakeisha, everything starts off small. I think that the problem with us, with some of us at least, is that we think that somehow overnight we're just going to have this flourishing society, and if it doesn't happen at the speed that some people think that it should, They feel like it's a lost cause or it's not worth the effort. What you have to understand is that everything starts off small and you build on it. And we don't have the tenacity to put in the work that is going to take to build these societies, then, like I said, we're setting ourselves up for failure. And we're going to continue to be in a situation where we're weak and vulnerable and in the line of fire. And that's just the reality of what it is. Jayla says, hey everyone. Hey Jayla. Urban Country Living says Wakanda overnight. Well, I mean, it seems like, that's what some people want. And another, a thing that I have a challenge with a lot of people when I'm talking to most black people about creating infrastructure and creating a society for ourselves, they always say to me, well, what's your plan? And they want the 3-point plan right then and there on Facebook. And it's like, come on, are you serious? This is something that we have to come together, brainstorm, strategize, and be serious about. But those people that do that, I know they're not serious, and I don't tend to waste my time with them because if you're sitting around continuing to how, and this and that, you're not putting the effort into actually doing the real groundwork that it's going to take for these societies to, come into fruition. Urban Country Living says people talking about race war and are so far from ready. Well, um, that is very, very true. When you think about war, black people in particular, because our societies and not our societies, but our neighborhoods, I should say, because we don't really even have communities. Our neighborhoods are so destabilized and so unorganized that we shouldn't even be talking about war or anything like that. We need to be talking about unifying ourselves as much as we possibly can and strategizing to create a society. Because the thing about it is that we are um, we are in this nation and we are conjoined to this nation. There's no way that a small group of people or a group of destabilized people are actually going to go up against a nation. Nations go against nations. So if we're talking about being in a position of power and being in the position where we can actually have a ground to stand on, this nation that we speak of will have to become a real thing. And that's just the reality of what it is. So if no one else has anything to contribute, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up here in a minute. What I want to say to everyone is, you know, we have to get into the mindset that we have to stop begging for people to like us. We have to stop begging for people to accept us and to want us and to include us in things that they want explicitly for themselves. I know it's very, very hard for us to detach ourselves from this society because it's all we know for most of us. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this is going to be something easy to do. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this is going to be an overnight process. But I guarantee you, the reward will be greater than the stress of having to do this. I feel like if we take ourselves seriously and we come together to build this, we will be doing ourselves a great service. We will also be building for the generations that precede us. And I think that that's one of the things that lacked during the civil rights movement is that I don't think that, our foreparents really understood the impact that destabilizing our communities and merging the communities would have on us. I don't think that they were really thinking in the long term about how handing over your power and handing over your resources and things that you had built, how that would have a lasting impact on the generations to come. Because as we can see, we haven't really been able to reveal any of these things because we are so ingrained into this society, which already has shown us that there is no incentive and there is no motivation for us to be built up in this society. So we need to begin to take ourselves seriously and come together to build up the future and the society that we want for ourselves and that we want for our future generations to come. Again, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so that you will be notified of when we're going live, when I'm posting videos. Um, and also, please thumbs up the video. That really helps the algorithms. Okay, we have one more comment that came in from Black Hearted Oracle. She says, "We are being baited into a race war. We are ill prepared for focusing on building a stronger African family. We are the salt of the earth." That is absolutely correct, Black Hearted Oracle, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. The one thing that I will say in regards to the race war, this is my thoughts on it. Um, Black people have been under attack for nearly 500 years. So we're not in what you would call a war, but there is a level of warfare that is being waged on us. And because we're weak and we don't have a cohesive society, we're not in a position to fight back in an effective way. So that is the main reason why I'm saying we have to begin to take this seriously. The situation is so critical to us and our future generations because right now in this moment, we have the power to do whatever it is that we feel is necessary to build ourselves up and get ourselves out of this situation. At this point, it is up to us whether or not we are going to take this thing seriously and we're going to get it done. Thank you to everybody that joined the live stream. I really, really appreciate each and every one of you. Please share this video. Please, please invite anyone you can think of to come and subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next